Welcome to CoachesTalk, a series of videos for your inspiration. Today I'm talking with life coach Bill Lee from Canada. My name is Matthijs Duker, I live in Holland and I am a happiness coach. Enjoy the videos.
When we're born, we're an empty vessel. And, our religion, the language we speak, the food we eat, the people who hang out at the church we end up going to the school is all controlled not by us, but by our parents and the other influential people in our lives when we first start in life. And it isn't until we get to, maybe 6 or 7 that we actually start putting our own ideas together, thinking things through ourselves. But before that, we're just an empty vessel. And so that becomes our default. Every time we're under stress or something, we default back to what was original programming. I'll give you an example. If you're if you're married or have children, and you always say, "Well, I'm never going to talk to my kids that way," but when the stress happens and little Junior does something, out comes your mouth the same words your parents used on you, automatic. And you have to take a conscious effort and say, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something different," if that's your choice.
Yes.
But that's what the original programming does to you. And so if you find yourself repeating something over and over again, sometimes it's the original program that you've been given. And if it doesn't serve you anymore, then we have to override that.
It's time to change
new programming into the computer.
Yeah.
But we're like, use an example of a computer because it's very similar. Because if you got old programming in your computer and you don't take it out and you just try to jam a new one in, it'll sometimes override or get confused and you'll have two, and it just messes up. So with people, there's no different. There's numerous ways to get the new programming in there, but the old program wants to pop out every once in a while, unless we can find a way to move it out. And sometimes people are very ready to get rid of that old programming, and it's not a thing. Sometimes it's there for a while. But if you keep using the new programming, continually repeating it, and even though the old one pops up, eventually the computer, whether it's you or the computer, will say, well, this becomes the default. This now becomes the default.
Yes. Yeah. And this programming can be carried across generations. The way people do things.
There's people out there that do so-called cleansing of genetic or hereditary. The word for genetic cross on through. There was a problem with your great grandmother that her mother, and then you get it. And so that's all comes in. And I think there's some natural things that we have, just like the birds know when to fly north and south and do their thing, and the bears know when to hibernate. We too have some of that natural stuff in us that causes us to act a certain way.
Yes, because it's a routine that it's there for a reason. It's there because it's convenient for your system to know to do the motion, to not have to think about all the stuff. And when a program, if we call it a program, our routine becomes not helpful anymore, at least not in this time, in this period of your life, or in this phase of your life, programs become old at some point and not useful anymore.
That's right.
And this is how it's important to update your own system, literally, to be with your program where you want to be in life itself. So if you have your old belief systems inherited from family members long gone, it's maybe not that useful in the new times when the world has changed and where the systems have changed. So I think it's a very useful thing to update yourself regularly. At least check if you're in the position, in the place where you want to be with your routines and with your patterns.
Yeah, and you find that what people will say, well, I'm doing the same thing my dad used to be such a warrior, and I'm such a warrior, and his dad was such a warrior,
Or the opposite. I'm no way. I'm not like my father. Yes, you are, in so many ways. Oh yes. It's just buried in your subconscious how you're with all these routines, and
Oh yeah,
they're so
yeah,
baked in. What you said, it's like the first couple of years, the first 7 years specifically, are just imprinting. You're like a sponge as a
yes,
kid, and
yes,
you're taking it all in, and
yep,
then they can make up their own mind based on what they learned in those 7 years. So
yes, yes,
yeah, we are programmed biological robots in some way. So
yeah. But you know, it was designed that way. I mean, that's part of our survival as people, is to be that sponge so we can learn how to survive.
yes,
Because there's a good chance by the time we got to 7, one of our parents might disappear,
yes,
get eaten by a tiger or something else. So it was very important that we grabbed all that stuff because we had to learn for our survival. And what better
yes,
way to learn from our parents who've just, you know, in that environment, in that situation, this is what we do.
yes, and from our experiences, just
Mhm.
do not forget that the tiger with the big teeth are dangerous because it ate your auntie or uncle.
Yeah.
If you forget it, if you don't have it in your new routine, well, next time it's even more dangerous.
You made a comment earlier that was very, very, very relevant, is that in where we are today, things are changing so much faster. You don't have
Yes,
to go back very far, just a few 100 years or so. If your dad was a carpenter, you were a carpenter. If he was a baker, you were a baker. I mean, these villages, that's how it worked. You inherited, you
yeah,
became what your parents were. And you could be in that profession not only all your life, but your children could be and their children could be. And now we're changing professions or jobs every 5, 10 years. I mean, we're rolling over. So the change is so much faster than it used to be, that it's hard for us with the wiring that we have for all the generations and millions of years we've evolved. It puts stress on us. Yeah,
yes,
it's not normal, but
yeah,
that is the normal now for us, and so we have to learn to adjust. Yeah, we physically, mentally, or however you want to look at it, physically have to walk over to the door in our mind, open it up to these new possibilities,
yes,
because it's not natural for that door to swing open on its own. We have
yeah,
to physically open it up and say, oh, there's more stuff I can bring in.
yeah.
Otherwise, hey, we're just living in this world and it works out good, and
Hmm.
we don't know any different.
Yeah.
But our reality might tell us, we need to open the door
Yeah, it's
all by
refreshing
ourselves
to
over here.
yeah, yeah, and it can be very refreshing to have more doors than
Oh,
what you are
yeah,
shown. If
yeah,
you are from youth shown this is one door, you will become a baker, not a carpenter, but a baker because we said so.
yeah, yeah,
That it's a very narrow path and a very very unexciting
yeah,
life, I guess, because you don't have the possibilities that we have right now. And of course, all our routines and all our the way of doing things is all mixed up in this
yes,
in all these changes and all these
yeah,
possibilities that we have.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the
yeah.
knife cuts on two ends, I think. So
And the key to it all, this is the big part. Once you recognize that there's a possibility that I can open that door, once there's a possibility in your mind that you realize I can access these new opportunities, these new ideas, and I don't have to hang on to the old ones.
yes,
That's fantastic, because once you got that, well, then we can change. But
yes,
if you're not aware, you don't do. You can't understand.
yeah.
You can't conceive. Yeah.
Yeah, that there are more doors behind this one door.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And you and I know, once you start opening doors, there's a whole bunch more.
yeah, yeah, and more and more. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah,
yeah. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and
It's
that's I
wonderful.
think that's great about breaking with your routines and checking out the world beyond this one door that you think that
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
one door. So
yeah,
and it takes courage and it takes sometimes time. It usually is very uncomfortable because it's outside of your routine and the brain wants to be comfortable doing the same thing over and over and over again. We
yes,
talked about it last time about
yes,
that the spirit wants to experience and the brain wants to do the same thing over and over
yeah,
again.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't want to do anything new. So that's very fascinating how that works. There is the key. The key is just outside the key to success or happiness or more of what you're seeking is just about on the other side of your comfort zone, or of the threshold or of comfort and discomfort. So
Yes, yes, yes. I'm so happy you talk about the key, because that's something I'm putting in my book that I'm writing. Is that the numbers that latest numbers I got was that the conscious mind is only 5% of what you do, and the subconscious is 95%.
yes,
So the real work comes from the subconscious mind. That does all the big stuff for you. But here's the neat thing. We talk about doors, but your conscious mind is the key. It's the key that'll open all those doors.
yes,
The door is bigger and everything else is bigger, but it's the key. So when your mind, you can consciously say, I'm going to look, you will find. When you consciously say, I'm going to be open, you are open. That's the key. The conscious mind is the key for everything that opens up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this reality, and how we work with this reality, we need the mind to interpret what we had to shape our world. If you compare it to dreaming, for example, it is mostly subconscious. You can have worlds beyond your imagination, and between sleep and waking up, you sometimes have to. I have sometimes a moment that I can grasp what this world look like in the subconscious, because it's way bigger than what the brain can or your conscience can hold.
Yeah.
And then after 5 minutes, you have totally lost grip of this subconscious world, because we do have access to it, only not with our narrow-minded focus keyhole brain capacity, because that's the 5%. It's like the driver with binoculars at the wheel, and it doesn't see what's immediately around the bus or the car, but in the distance, and focusing on one spot. That's how I perceive my conscience and my subconscious. If you talk about the 5 and the 95%, it's in our being, we are so much more capable of registering what is out there, and our brain, in my belief system, in my brain, is narrowing the possibilities, literally, especially with how the brain works, with in combination with our programming, with our routines, what you cannot do and what you can do, and especially what you cannot do. It all comes together in this world, with a 5% and a 95%. I think it's fascinating that we are so much on the autopilot or the subconscious in our life.
The beliefs, that we have, they came in, we saw, we've seen, and then they fall into that subconscious, and that's what dictates what goes on. But it still comes through here, comes through there. Yeah.
It's the difference between thinking and knowing.
Yeah.
What you said last time, if you have a test or an exam, and the first thing that comes to mind is usually the right one. It has nothing to do with thinking. It's about knowing.
Yeah. And the longer you live, the more you get to know, and the more knowing you become.
Yeah.
This is out of Abraham Hicks.
Oh yeah.
Jerry and Esther Hicks. They wrote some books, and in Abraham, he talks about working with somebody, and they realize that their past is affecting them. And the analogy was putting your hand on the stove. All right, you're so used to putting your hand on the stove, whether it's, and that analogy can mean worry, it can mean doubt, it can mean relationship. You're hurting yourself by keeping your hand on the stove. And in the analogy, we take the hand off the stove. We convince them, take your hand off the stove. And how's that feel? Oh, it feels so much better. Oh, I didn't know it feels this good. I didn't know I could do this. And not only did my hand not hurt, I can use it for other things than to lean on the stove. It's so great. But then in a short period of time, they're putting their hand back on the stove. And you ask, why are you putting your hand back on the stove? I don't know what to do with this free hand. I've always had my hand on the stove. My mother always had her hand on the stove. My grandmother always had her hand on the stove. And I think my grandmother be my great-grandmother. She always had her hand on the stove.
Yeah.
So I have to keep my hand on the stove.
Yeah. Talk about routines. Yeah.
Your routine, how you believe, how all that kind of stuff, because misery sometimes is comfortable.
Oh yes.
because the change of taking your hand off the stove, you don't know what to do. Now, my dad used to smoke cigarettes. He says the hardest part was, what am I going to do with my hand?
Yeah.
That was, he found peppermints to solve the mouth issue, to have something flopping around his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
But he says that hand, he says, I had to have it. That cigarette was so used to being in my hand.
Yes.
And I went through these motions. And it was a comforting motion. That was kind of how he dealt with stress. He had a cigarette, he could do this, and
Yeah.
it kind of took his mind off his issues and stuff. He said that was an issue.
Yeah.
So all these things in life that we repeat over and over again serve a cause, they serve a purpose, they do something. And so when you change, you have to give up something. You can't, a monkey can't jump from one tree to the other without giving up the limbs that he's hanging on to.
Yes.
Free fly through the air to grab the other. He has
Yeah.
to let go.
Yes.
A lot of us in life, we'll do that. We'll hang on to one branch. This is comfortable because this is home, right? But we know we got to move because this tree's got no more fruit on it.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to grab this other one. We're hanging on to two places.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what happens?
That's a good example. I experienced it myself with my nicotine addiction. People would think that an addiction is in the body. It's like my body is asking for this and other, and if I don't put whatever the substance is in my body, then my body goes on tilt. Of course, this is the
Yes.
first 24 hours of detoxification of your
Yep.
body of any drug or nicotine or whatever it is. And I
Okay.
experienced that it is not the body that is asking for the substance, it is the mind programmed to do the same thing over and over and over again. It is the pathway between the receptors from A to B, from the trigger to the end point, the end result.
Yes.
Taking a cigarette in my case.
Yep.
This is how the brain works. Even if it's not healthy for you, it is still your comfort zone. So what feels very comfortable can be very destructive for your life. In my case, smoking, and smoking, of course, is not healthy for anybody. And I smoked a lot, and it is a mind f to say it like this, because you know you want to do something else, but your brain is telling you every 5 minutes, oh, something's not right, I need a cigarette, I need something in my hand, or there is something out of place. That's the brain doing, nothing else. Not your muscles, not your heart, not your lungs, definitely not your lungs. They don't ask to be abused. Your brain is so used to abuse whatever you are doing to yourself. It is the pathway between the receptors in your brain. It's like a highway. You can smoke a pack of cigarettes a day for 20 years. Every time you do the same thing, the pathway is widening. So you can compare it with a grassland, a field in a park, and the walkways are around it. At some point, somebody thinks, oh, this is a faster route. So people beginning walking on the grass, and a small path will be cut out within a couple of weeks or months. In a matter of time, there will be a path visible in the grass. This is a new pathway. This is the new route from A to B, like an addiction as cigarettes, because once you started this pathway, the longer you walk on it, the wider it will be, the more visible it will be. After 20 years of smoking every day, a pack of cigarettes a day, it will be a 6-lane highway instead of a dent in the grass.
Yeah.
And this is where it will go wrong for many people with quitting cigarettes. It's not quitting the cigarette, it's quitting the routine. And the routine is so much more powerful than whatever substance it is. The addiction is literally your routine, what you are doing, and on what time, and the whole pattern about it.
Yep.
This is what I learned, and this is why you don't do it once, you do it every 5 minutes. Every time your routine tells you, oh, it's time for a cigarette, and it's a lot in the beginning, at every point in the way, like getting in the car, smoking in the car, for example. Every time you step in the car, your mind thinks, oh, this is I recognize this. this is a point where you normally smoke cigarettes. Now you don't, of course, but you have to be actively and consciously about it, not smoking a cigarette. This is how you quit smoking, by the way. Every time. It's like in the first 3 months, you will have hundreds and hundreds of impulses to go smoking in every area that you usually smoke cigarettes. So if you didn't fly to a destination with an airplane, in the time being that you have quit smoking cigarettes, maybe it's 15 years later, you will get out of the airplane and immediately your body, your brain would say, okay, what's wrong here? I need to smoke. So all these triggers, all these patterns, they are so deeply engraved in our lives and our way of doing things that we think that we have shed it off, that we lost the bad habit, and there it is, like 20 years later or 1 year later, or at least at some point where you are doing something that you used to do with the old habit.
Yes.
And this is very important to recognize and to be aware of and to be conscious about. If you are conscious, you have the choice to do whatever you want to do. So of course you can take that cigarette and smoke again after 20 years, or you can think, oh, this is interesting. This is old.
Yes.
This is an old pattern. Wow.
But it's a pattern. It's a pattern that you had not played through.
Yeah, you always have a choice.
Even it's 10 years, but it's a new pattern. Since you quit smoking, it's the first time we've had to do this situation.
Yes.
And that triggers it, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And every time. And it usually takes a couple of times that you undermine this trigger of this old pattern.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating that the brain works like this, because it's there, I think, to save us and to protect us. And yet you can use it to destroy yourself.
What you said here, I took a little note what you said here, and I thought this is really, really powerful. You don't stop smoking once. You stop every 5 minutes. You have you have to stop over and over. Every situation you got to stop.
Yes.
I think that's very powerful, because most of us think, well, if I smoke one, I stop. No, and that's how it comes back. It's a situation. Very powerful.
It's also it's also doing something else, because stopping is not an active act. Not doing anything is, of course, doing a thing, but it usually works to do something else. The body and the mind always have to do something. That it's true. You have to quit every 5 minutes, especially in the beginning. And during the weeks that follow and months that follow, you will have less and less powerful triggers to the same pattern, because it's you can imagine that if you stop walking over this grass path, the grass will grow back little bit by little bit. And of course, there will be marks in the ground. That's why addictions are so powerful, because once you open this highway again with one cigarette, it's there. And it's open wide. So that's why addictions are so powerful for people to battle with or to handle. It's all about knowing how your brain works, because if you know what's happening, you can undermine it. So I would say take action and responsibility for what your brain does, instead of leaning back and thinking, oh my God, what does my body want to do now? Like being a passenger of your own car without a driver.
Yes, and that'll be the hard part for people to adjust. To give up the control. I give up control. My routines change, so I have control. It's gone.
Yeah, and it's uncomfortable every time, because your brain wants to do the same thing over and over again. If you do something else, then you're creating a new pathway, and a new pathway is unknown territory.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
You know, we talk about this uncomfortable stuff because we always do something. Do you think we could get so it's the other way around, so that the adventure becomes the addiction? The change becomes the addiction? We are wired, we're so used to of a routine pattern that when we have a routine, that we get comfortable in the routine.
Yes.
Is there people out there that are comfortable in seeing the change? I do believe our youth are more used to doing change than we are. Like my dad, the telephone was new for him, and even to the day he passed away, he didn't like using the phone because that was new in his world.
Yeah.
We have technology. You're used to change more than I am, because I was born in '53. Nothing changed much, until the '60s. We got computers and stuff. And we adopted change. We were the first ones that had microwave, VCRs, all that kind of stuff. The toys, we did pretty good at that. But those changes were 5 years apart. Those were,
yes.
And now we have changes that are happening within
Every
6
week.
months.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just before we go on the call, we talked about all these apps we can get to do this, and it's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
And so, our youth are expecting change.
Yes.
I think they adapt
so you
better
could
than we
see
do.
it like this, that they have that youth nowadays have the routine of expecting new things. So and that's what I see with young people. They are so fast. They cannot watch. They have an attention span of 5 minutes less than I had when when I was 16, because everything is so fast with videos, with music. Everything is faster and less time consuming, efficient, more efficient, all kinds of stuff. And if you get used to this is also a routine.
Yes.
It's very uncomfortable for kids that are used to having this speed in their life to not have any speed in their life. Take them out for camping, and the first 3 days they will go like, oh, where's my phone, and where's the interaction, where's the speedy efficiency, and I need to. So of course this is also a routine, and it's always uncomfortable to step out of your routine, whatever it is. So I guess yes.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
How we function.
Fascinating.
How we adapt.
It's built to keep us alive, to keep us safe, to prosper in life. And just like a car, you can use a car to smash into a wall, to break a house down, literally. And you can also use a car to drive yourself around and meet family and friends and go everywhere with speed and efficiency. So it's just how you want to use it. And our brain is just as creative and destructive at the same time. So I think it's fascinating how we use it. And I see a change in the world, that people are using their brains more and more to create stuff instead of destroy stuff. People are more conscious about their capabilities, I guess. So
I think that's the important part, that we're more conscious. Because once you're conscious, we talked about that in all the videos we've been doing here. We talked about the consciousness.
Yeah.
But once you're conscious of something, then it can be changed. Then it can be.
Then you have a choice.
You have a choice. You can analyze this. Well, do I want to keep this or I want that? But you have to make that. Be conscious of it. Be aware of it. And once you're aware, then things can happen.
Yeah, then you're not in the back seat of your own car. Then you have the driver's wheel, and you decide if you use it or not. But then it's a choice. Then it's a conscious choice. Yeah.
You bet it is. You bet it is. And we have lots of choices.
Oh yeah,
more
so
than
much
ever.
Possibilities. Yeah.
Unlimited opportunities. Opportunities that our parents never had. Our grandparents. I don't know if from recorded history, we as an individual have so many opportunities and choices to make.
Yes.
In the old days, you were able to get one choice, and that was the one that you took for the rest of your life.